All right, guys. We are back, and Hollie Foust here. And today I have brought on someone special, very, very special, to give us some insight about communication in all generations that are presently in our offices. So, without further ado, Dr. Ashley George, if you will just tell us about yourself and help us to communicate better. We need it.
Thanks, Holly. I'm so happy to be here. So as Holly mentioned, I'm Dr. Ashley George, and I have a PhD in communication studies. I'm a professor, but I'm also a consultant. I've worked with dentists before. Have also worked with other types of groups, but I specifically specialize in offering communication training and consulting to people who are doing really good work. That is my hope and my desire, is to come alongside organizations and practitioners who are doing such important and meaningful and valuable work, and to encourage them first and foremost, but also maybe provide some tools in their tool belt for communication strategies. Specifically, recently, I have begun to teach and train in the area of intergenerational communication. So I've done a good bit of work and talks on communicating with Gen Z. We know this is a generation that is entering the workforce, entering residency programs, training programs right now. My work with college students has anecdotally helped me be prepared in this light, but also it's an area that I've spent some time in my research practice, and I love it. I love being able to address some of those frustrations and difficult moments on both sides, and just help people arrive to interactions feeling a bit more confident, because they've got some more, like I said, some more tools and resources in their tool belt to help them feel more confident in those interactions. So what I've done a lot is when I've gone to talk to different groups, is that I'll present sort of the landscape of the generational research. So what is this generation like? What are other generations like? And what are some of the causes of that? What do we see as some of the reasons that we see differences among ways that generations communicate? And
So
then
you
I'll,
see, Ashley, that the average dentist has team members in their practice that could be like 65 all the way
yep,
down to 18.
yep,
That's all the generations, it feels like,
that's
right?
right. That's right. It
And you
is.
see the frustration when you
Yep,
walk in the door of the 65-year-old not even being able to communicate with the 18-year-old.
that's right.
And you see this, but you see it in all landscapes. You see it in school, you see it in medical practices. You consult for many different types of industries, so you're seeing it throughout the industries. But there's a commonality, right?
Absolutely.
So I can't wait for you to tell us a little bit about some tools that you teach, because it's stressful.
Yeah,
Stressful when the dentist has no idea how to deal with this frustration.
absolutely. I think a lot of it, we start with personal awareness. We start with talking about what are our own communication styles. Do we have any communication apprehension? Do we have any assumptions about folks coming into the room? And also providing education about how other generations communicate and why can be really empowering. And just to folks to feel like that things are less of a question mark, or why is this not clicking? Why are we not communicating well? Why is this person responding so differently to constructive feedback than the group I had last year or the year before or 10 years ago? Because I'm teaching in the same way. So why is this not landing in the same way? So we start with some personal awareness, and then I offer some practical strategies, things like how can we assess maybe whether the other person has communication apprehension? How can we make our communication environment one that they would feel more comfortable in? And most importantly, I think I generally like to emphasize that if we can frame our feedback and our communication interactions as support, rather than critique. More so than for any previous generation, that's going to be so important to members of Gen Z who are coming in and, in a lot of ways feel like people that we can't connect with. But there are things that have allowed them to feel less inclined to initiate risk, less inclined to interact in situations where they can't predict every outcome. So if we can frame the way that we're communicating to them differently, then they might come in a little less intimidated, which is going to make our interaction more fluid.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. What are some you talk about generational communication, you talk about the gaps. Just lay out the landscape of that. We had talked earlier about, the different styles and things that we've grown up with and things that you're seeing. Share a little bit more about that with me and with everyone listening, because this is like, for many of us, this is eye-opening.
Yeah. Well, I'll just kind of expose my age here. I'm what they call a geriatric millennial. So
geriatric millennial, that's a new term.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not quite Gen X, but close. But I feel like it gives me a unique lens of being close enough to not so geriatric millennials, at least, that I can see some of those shifts and transitions and sort of meet them where they are a little bit. But one of the things, so just to give you an example that I share about anecdotally, this is only one example, but I think it's a powerful one. We have to look at the way that our everyday behaviors impact our professional interactions, or even the way that our everyday behaviors, the ones that we think don't really have a lot of meaning, actually impact our relationships significantly. So I like to use the example of when I was a kid growing up in the 80s and 90s, if we wanted to hang out with a friend, we wanted to have a play date with a friend, we called their house phone, and you didn't know who was going to answer. And it was probably going to be their mom or their dad. And so we had to learn to talk to adults at really young ages. And we also had to deal with this moment of uncertainty. So we had to deal with the fact that we didn't know what they were going to say, and we didn't know what we were going to say. And we kind of had to rehearse a little script beforehand, or if we're going to answer our house phone, we had to rehearse a little script of how we were even going to answer it. And then kind of manage that uncertainty from there. I mean, I remember when caller ID was established. So when it was invented. So before then, I mean, you really had no idea who was calling you, not even from, whose household or whatever. As everyday and mundane as that activity seems, what it builds is communication resilience. And it builds just a resilience for uncertainty, that we can have some degree of tolerance for, I don't know exactly what's going to happen in this exchange, but it's not going to paralyze me. Right. And that, doing that over and over builds that communication resilience. Well, this generation, for the most part, Generation Z, has not been doing that. And for even some not so geriatric millennials, they didn't do that a lot. When you have any introduction to new technology, you shift in generational gaps, but this is one in particular where you think about those everyday moments and how they actually can be so impactful for our professional interactions, but also our relationships, where, they weren't making those phone calls in the same way. They're texting their friends, or maybe they're chatting on social media, but everything is so curated. And so there becomes a much stronger risk aversion. I'm less tolerant of uncertainty because my life just doesn't operate that way.
Right.
My everyday interactions operate in a very controlled environment for the most part. So when they are experiencing an in-person interaction that is unexpected, I like to be able to provide both parties some tools for how can we manage that.
Wow. Yeah, and we don't think about this.
Yeah.
We don't think about this, but yet this is the difference of the generational difference of half the people in your office didn't grow up with a cell phone in their hand,
Right.
and they had caller ID or they didn't.
Yeah.
And then the other half, they don't understand what it's would even be like. Like
Right.
that's archaic to them to think that you grew up without a phone. How
Right.
barbaric, how oh my gosh, how did you survive?
Yeah.
Like so lots of differences there, and to recognize those things definitely put things in perspective for communicating in a dental office for sure, or any type of communication situation.
Yeah.
So give me another tool. What's some basic tools that you would give anyone that's just trying to be a better communicator?
That's a great
I
question.
know I'm putting the pressure on
Yeah.
you. We have
I
to talk to
think
the doctor about this.
I think that another, I mean, there's so many things that come to mind, but I think one of the first things that comes to my mind is to, as much as possible, increase the amount of face-to-face communication that you have in your everyday life.
Oh,
Um,
that's
not only is it going to help us be a better communicator, but it's going to help us be healthier people. So another area that I study is in health communication. And we know that, people who live the longest in the blue zones, for example, places in the world where people live the longest, not only are their social support networks really strong, but they're also socially integrated. There's a great researcher named Dr. Susan Pinker who has done a lot of research in Sardinia, Italy, about the blue zone there and this piece of social integration. Just like, how integrated are you with your community? Do you know your grocer? Do you talk to the person who serves your coffee every morning? Do you know your neighbors?
I was
How
going to say,
often?
do you even know your neighbors? Can you
Yeah,
ask for some sugar?
that's right. I mean, do
Right?
you in this village, when she was studying there, people were constantly coming in, delivering fresh fruits and vegetables to each other. They're living intergenerationally, and people view caring for elder generations as an honor and a privilege rather than something that is burdensome. And so I think when there's certainly, I want to be really sensitive here to any introverts who might be listening today, that this is not exclusive to extroverts. I don't think increasing our face-to-face communication means that we have to be in a big group of people all day long. We
Right.
all need time to recharge, and we have to learn to be able to be still with our own thoughts and our own minds. Absolutely. This can even look like really small groups or one-on-one interactions, but we've seen a lot of these shifts post pandemic, back toward in person communication. And it doesn't necessarily have to be formal. It doesn't have to be getting up in front of a large group of people. It doesn't have to be that, maybe some people work remotely, but there are still ways that we can manage this and that means when we increase our in-person communication, that our technology time is naturally going to decrease. And studies are showing us that we're seeing a lot more benefits from that than anything else.
Yeah. I totally believe it. So if I'm the introverted person, which
Yeah.
I'm not, but
Yeah.
if I was, then and I had zero interactions through the day, I work from home, whatever, I need to go to one.
Right.
I should try to look for one.
Right.
If I was someone who, had 4 interactions a day with people, maybe I got to go to 5 or 6. We're just increasing to continue to have great FaceTime, have great communication, just talking to people. I feel
Well,
like if you don't use it, you do lose it.
absolutely.
You lose your empathy, you lose your connectivity, you lose eye contact. I see that so much. Like you just don't even look at people when they're
Yeah.
talking to you. And then
Well,
immediately that starts to trigger the other person to go, what's wrong? What's wrong with them? They're
yes.
not even
Yeah.
looking at me.
Yes.
So there's a lot of judgment that happens from that first interaction.
Mm-hmm.
So to train ourselves to get engaged, to be
That's right.
engaged,
That's
to
right.
connect,
That's
it's
right.
huge. So, I love that tip.
And
Such a good
if we don't ever put ourselves in those situations, then we are never in those moments where we have to think on the spot. We're never in those moments that aren't so curated, and being in interactions that are, you know, very safe and like maybe even like very low stakes, but still uncertain of how they're
Right.
exactly who's going to, that aren't so
You don't
curated.
know the response.
That's right.
That's the uncertainty. You don't know
And
how
yeah,
that conversation's going to go. You don't know what their response is going to be. So therefore, you don't have your response ready.
that builds communication
And that's
resilience.
training.
Absolutely.
It's such a simple exercise,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
yet so huge to empower better communication. I
And
love it.
we need the nonverbals to be able to communicate more effectively in that route too.
What would you say to dentists and any business owner that's just struggling with these communications in their office? Hey, here's a simple exercise. Here's something you should look at and watch daily in your office that would help you. What's a tip for an owner that would help them to be a better communicator? Because, they communicate nonstop every day with patients and then the team, but yet they don't know how to deal with these things going on in their team. They don't even see it
Yeah.
because they're like, communication, why do I talk all the time?
Yeah.
I'm forced
That's
to
a
talk
great,
every day.
yeah. That's a great question. A lot of what I am teaching and researching right now is about listening. And so that's one thing that initially comes to mind. When we can listen to understand rather than listening to try to solve, we can develop a lot more empathy and we can come into interactions with a lot fewer assumptions.
Oh,
And so I think there are different listening styles, there are different listener styles. And if we can understand what our particular style is and what maybe someone else's is, it can help us to have a lot more fruitful interactions. I also think that to be a really good listener, we have to learn to be able to be still and present with ourselves. So I actually wonder, as counterintuitive as it sounds, if a practice for a business owner might be on that drive into work, maybe we're just driving in silence
yeah.
as we're allowing ourselves to be, experiencing some silence and stillness with our own thoughts so that we can be more present when we enter the workplace and be more present with the people that we're working with.
Ooh, that's so good. And for those owners out there that are multitasking and they're always trying to get through their task list and get through their daily grind, having those moments of silence or having those moments that, they open their door and say, come on in,
Yeah.
and they hear their team. It's huge because the team is so insightful for what's happening
Yeah.
day to day that's not at the chair.
That's right.
That's so far out of the ownership's control because it's not happening right there with the patient at the chair. There's a whole world happening in
Yeah.
that office.
Yeah.
And those team members need to talk. They
Mm-hmm.
need questions answered and they need to communicate. They need to be heard.
That's right.
So I've always encouraged doctors to have some time to where they're able to have that open door. Hey, come talk. Tell me about the day. Tell me what's going well. Tell me what concerns you have so we can start working through them. But you giving out those tips just keeps solidifying the need for great training, the need for great coaching. We don't all have all the tools in our belt.
That's right.
And I think that's very important that you're sharing that is giving us more tools. We need these tools. We need communication tools. And they don't teach this in school,
Yeah.
not in dental school. There's so many, it's not really on the list of to-dos.
Yeah.
So these postgraduate trainings are so important.
Yeah.
So, Ashley, if somebody wants to get a hold of you and bring you into their office,
Yeah.
they just need some communication coaching. Or if a meeting planner wants to get a hold of you because they're like, the world needs to learn better communication, how do they find Dr. Ashley George?
Yeah. So they can check out my website. It's ashleygeorgeconsulting.com. You can reach out on LinkedIn. It's Ashley George PhD, or send me an email, ashleygeorgeconsulting@gmail.com. I'd love to chat.
Fabulous. And if you had one tip that you want to leave your listeners with, just one thing, what would you what would you share that you would say, if you heard nothing else, hear
Yeah.
this?
I guess I would just hope that people know that communications, I think so many folks feel discouraged about communication skills because they think I either have it or I don't. You know, some people just have it. Some people are just good communicators. That's how they were made and that's how they're shaped, and there's no hope for me. And I would strongly argue against that these skills are things that really uh, can be cultivated. And that's true for every generation. So to not give up on yourself, but not also don't give up on your colleagues who maybe don't communicate in the same way.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being on. I can't wait to another episode of communication training because we know there's so many gaps from generation to generation. We just have to work to bridge that. So your time's important to us, and I just appreciate this time today.
Thanks for having me, Holly. It was great.